Another year, another Summer Game Fest. But now, for the first time ever, it was filmed in front of a live audience, harkening back to the not-so-distant days of E3. Jeff the Big G Keighley takes the stage and gives us game after game after game. If you've seen my content before, or you can read the title of the video, then you already know which game I actually want to talk about the most. But I still want to be fair to the other titles I'm interested in that were shown at the event. So before we dive super deep into that new and surprisingly packed Rebirth trailer, I'm gonna give a quick once-over on all the games that I'm keeping an eye on, and I'll go over them in the order which they appeared. If you want to skip to the Rebirth trailer analysis, use the chapter function to do so. Timestamps are in the description as well. Let's start. Surprisingly, I think Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown looks pretty good. It takes the series back to its roots a little bit, but the combat and movement seems pretty fun. I'm not Ubisoft's biggest fan, but I'll cross my fingers that this one sticks the landing. Mortal Kombat 1 gameplay seems pretty alright. I gotta admit up front though, I am not the biggest MK fan. I've always hated how the games feel to play. They seem stiff and wonky in comparison to other 2D fighting games. But maybe MK1 will be different in this regard. Path of Exile 2 looks really promising. I played the first game a fair amount, and 2 is already giving off a good impression. The animations look better, and there seems to be a dodge roll. Plus, that logo reveal kicked ass. I don't play Dead by Daylight, but I do like Nicolas Cage, so I will say that he was a great guest on the show and displayed a lot of charm and enthusiasm. Remnant 2 looks pretty interesting. I played the first game but didn't get around to finishing it, but I did enjoy the parts I did experience. So here's hoping the sequel is just as good, if not better. Sonic Superstars looks really charming. The character models look adorable, and there seems to be co-op, interesting stage gimmicks, the Chaos Emeralds seem to do new things, and Fang is back. Maybe it's time for some good old 2D Sonic once again. Lies of P continues to look interesting. I haven't gotten around to playing the demo yet. I've been too busy going apeshit over Rebirth and playing Street Fighter 6 in my spare time. But when I do play it here pretty soon, I hope it feels as good as it looks. If it does, then I'm fully sold. I wish I could be interested in Throne and Liberty, but I am only too keenly aware of how Korean MMOs seduce you with graphics and combat, and then drain you of your time and money for a tedious grind and disappointing post-game like some sort of video game succubus. But hey, if it ends up not being like that, then maybe I'll check it out. I've already given my thoughts on Alan Wake 2 in my video about the PlayStation Showcase, but to summarize, it does look great. I am only deeply disappointed in the awful and frankly dishonest decision to make the game digital only. Next is Space Marine 2, and holy shit, it looks fantastic. The visuals, the hordes of enemies, the combat, it all looks amazing. I can't wait to get my hands on the game, especially if it's as good as this trailer makes it look. Palworld looks like a very amusing and charming spoof on monster collecting games, with the animals blasting AKs and working in sweatshops. I look forward to seeing how it plays out. About halfway into the show, we got a glimpse of a different Final Fantasy VII game, Ever Crisis, the fascinating mobile game that is going to offer small-scale remakes of all Final Fantasy VII compilation media. We saw more gameplay and costumes in the trailer, and pre-registration opened up, and you can bet I already signed up for it. I'm pretty hype, and I would hope that the gacha systems are not too predatory. Fingers crossed. I just wish Square did the smart thing and also put the game on PC and consoles. It can't be that hard to do. The first soldier might still be alive if they did that for it. And of course, the other franchise I am absolutely crazy about, Like a Dragon, had an appearance in the form of Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name. We already know it's going to be a smaller scale game, probably about 15 to 20 hours long compared to the usual 40 plus of mainline games and Judgment. But Kiryu is back, as is the traditional brawler combat. But now he has a sick new agent fighting style. And according to reports, Kamurocho is not in the game, which will be a series first, besides the historical spin-offs, of course. It goes without saying at this point, but I will be playing this. At least I would hope to be playing it as soon as it's out, because there won't be a physical release in the West for it. Meaning I'll probably import it. If the import doesn't have any English options, then I guess I'll be forced to buy it digitally. Sadly, after that, there was about a 20-minute stretch of stuff that didn't really set off any alarms for me. But this means we can finally dive into the show's finale. I've seen some people complain that Jeff was hyping the game up like it was something else, but come on now. If you still believe any rumor relating to Bloodborne in 2023, you honestly deserve disappointment. You should know better by now. Seriously. I saw some people also think that he was talking about Persona 3 Remake too, but let's be real. When Jeff said that it had an expansive world and redefined the RPG genre, it was obviously not going to be Persona related either. And I say that as someone who also likes Persona. No, it ended up being Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, sequel to 2020's Remake, which was my game of the year for that year and for multiple reasons. Rebirth was first announced a full year ago, and we've heard absolutely nothing about it since. But once a series of daily developer comments started to appear on Twitter suggesting that it was also a countdown to Summer Game Fest, people were understandably hype, especially after the game failed to appear at the PlayStation Showcase, which many people thought it would. But let's not waste any more time, and let's start diving into the trailer by first going over general impressions, then a painstakingly detailed analysis. There's a lot to discuss here, and I really mean it. So strap in and let's get analyzing. As far as basic impressions go, the trailer is loaded with new story details and even more reveals of the wide, open, or semi-open world that we're going to be able to explore. It looks absolutely jaw-dropping. The environments are so vibrant and stuffed with so much detail. It's truly magnificent. And of course, there was no lack of plot teases, especially regarding Sephiroth. But probably the biggest new reveal for this trailer is actual combat. We get several glimpses of different party compositions fighting different enemies, but the big detail here is motherfucking dual techs. Team-up attacks where two party members work together to deliver powerful blows. This mechanic is associated with Chrono Trigger, and it unfortunately hasn't made many appearances since. But when it showed up in a smaller form in Remake's Intermission DLC, where you control Yuffie and team up with Sonon, it became clear where the direction of the combat was going, and thank God for that. The dual techs in this trailer look fucking sick, but what about the specifics, and the nuances, and the really subtle things that are almost impossible to notice on the first watch? Well, there's quite a few things to touch on for all those categories. Let's go over everything in order. Oh, and for those of you who have not played Remake yet, spoilers are ahead, so watch at your own risk. First, when the trailer starts, there's a news report mentioning a tornado that ripped through sectors 0, 1, and 2 of Midgar. In fact, in the first few frames of the trailer, you can pause and see the tornado for yourself. The report shows footage of injured or maybe even dead Barret, Tifa, Red 13, and Aerith being transported out of the rubble, but no Cloud. Obviously, this footage is not of the main timeline. This clearly does not happen in Remake, meaning we're witnessing events of a different timeline, probably the newly created one where Zack survives. We get a brief flash of Sephiroth's black feather and the tagline of "The unknown journey continues," which is what the end of Remake refers to the story as well. Then we see Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, Barret, and Red opening a gate, which is presumably an exit from Calm if the brief glimpse of the walls behind Cloud are any indication. Here we catch the first glimpse of the open or semi-open world that we'll be able to explore, and it does look big. Aerith expresses awe, and Red remarks that the planet's hurting more than it appears to be. When gameplay begins of the party running forward, we can see the compass at the top of the screen showing a main objective marker named Goal, and a side objective marker that's for something nearly 500 meters away. I like the detail of the pipes off to the side, suggesting that even well beyond Midgar, Shinra is fucking the land up by digging huge pipelines across a great distance. Then we get a second shot of the party running, this time in a more forested area. The main objective marker on the compass reads over 500 meters, and the secondary objective reads over 700 meters, and a totally different white marker is the one that says goal. The voiceover during this section is Tifa asking what Cloud has been doing for the last 5 years, to which Aerith replies in confusion as to why Tifa would be asking her. Now, assuming this isn't a purposely misleading cut, Tifa could either be thinking out loud and not actually expecting Aerith to know, or she does expect Aerith to know, which would suggest Tifa suspects Aerith knows more than she's letting on. The next shot is Cloud approaching the entrance of the Chocobo farm, where there will no doubt be a minigame of some sort about raising and breeding chocobos. The end cutscenes of Intermission already introduced us to Chocobo Bill, because he was the one who gave the party a ride to Calm in the first place. And now the compass is doing all kinds of bullshit here. One main objective, 2 side objectives, and a white marker that appears to be flashing. In the background you can see Aerith and Red chilling in front of the barn. The very next shot is the party all riding on chocobos, through ruins of some sort. And if I were a betting man, I would say this is where you have to outrun the Midgar Zolom and reach the Mithril Mines. The compass has a new type of marker on the left, resembling the shape of a baseball home plate, with a green outline and an arrow on its upper right corner. It's about 650 meters away. The main objective is now over 1100 meters away too. And at the bottom left of the screen you can see the Chocobo controls, including Sprint, Dismount, and unknown commands Scent and Scour. We don't know what those do yet, of course. I imagine they are related to finding resources in the immediate vicinity. After that, we're given a slice of the Cosmo Canyon info dump scene featuring Bugenhagen, a character that many have been looking forward to seeing. His model of the solar system looks remarkable, and his design looks great too. He mentions the importance of the livestream as Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa look on. Then we cut to what seems to be the interior of the Mithril Mines. I've seen some people assume that it might be Cave of the Gi at Cosmo Canyon, but I doubt that, and for a few key reasons, which I'll go over in a bit. It seems that the party has split into 2 groups, one with Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith, and the other with Barret and Red. This is partly why it's Mithril Mines and not Cave of the Gi. Yuffie isn't here yet. We see Cloud and the girls run around while Rufus's voice is heard, talking about Sephiroth's failed clones. And yes, it is Rufus, not Vincent, because why would Vincent's voice be heard without him being physically introduced in the trailer? The Japanese dub makes it more clear that it is Rufus's voice actor too. There's another outdoor shot of Cloud and Red running alongside another massive pipeline. There's 2 markers on the compass, a blue main objective one that's over 1300 meters away, and a green objective that's over 1600 meters away. On the bottom left corner of the screen there's a Call Chocobo button. Then it cuts to what is almost certainly the party at Calm, right after discussing the events of the Nibelheim incident, which I am positive we will experience in a playable flashback, just like the original game. Cloud remarks that it was Sephiroth that they saw at Midgar, and Tifa questions why he would come back now after 5 years. We get a quick cut of the clones, then footage of Barret and Red fighting a golem boss, which I assume is also in the Mithril Mines, since they split into 2 groups as I mentioned before. This is a brand new enemy, as the mines did not have any boss fights at all in the original game. This is our first glimpse of Red being playable, as well as our first look at the battle UI. First things first, in the bottom left corner of the screen, Red has something called Vengeance Mode, which I assume is a more offensive focused stance similar to Cloud's Punisher Mode. Below that is the command menu button, which has a summon materia on it, so we know Red is equipped with a summon. On the bottom right corner of the screen we see the character panels showing their HP, MP, ATB, and limit bars, but there's a few new key additions, one of which we'll see later. For now, look at the vertical pips below the ATB meter. They're full at the moment, but nothing that Barret or Red do in this clip spend any of them. Then we get our introduction for Elena, the newest member of the Turks. This is also why I think this area is the Mithril Mines. The Turks show up here in the original game as well. Then we get some combat footage of Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith fighting both Elena and Rude. It's mostly transitional cutscene battle footage though, but the amount of HP the party has is also very telling that it's early in the game. Then we see a clip of Cloud approaching a brook in a very green and vibrant outdoor area, and Aerith and Red are seen again waiting for him. If we look up at the compass yet again, we can see another new marker, this time an orange one with a star in the middle, and it's over 1,500 meters away. Perhaps this is a hunt target or something? No idea. But then we cut to more combat, featuring a party of Cloud, Barret, and Tifa, and Cloud is going absolutely berserk on an enemy with a combo that I don't think was in Remake. The bottom left corner of the screen says to press triangle for operator mode, meaning that Cloud is currently in Punisher mode for this attack. As an added bonus, if you look to the left side of the screen, you can see Midgar in the distance. Then we finally catch a glimpse of the next major city on our journey, Junon. You can easily see the cannon, and if you squint a tiny bit, you can make out a ship as well, almost certainly the Highwind. We cut to more footage of Red's combat, but there's actually a more interesting detail here than him. If you look towards the back, you can see Aerith, standing ready. Why is this a big detail? Well, if you look at the bottom right corner, the current party is only Red, Cloud, and Barret, but Aerith is still seen nearby. Either this means you can switch out party members mid-fight, or non-party members are still seen at a distance as set dressing. Either way, I actually really like this detail. And after that, in what seems to be the same battle, or at least 10 steps away from that battle, we get probably the biggest combat-related reveal in the whole damn trailer, the dual techs. First is Aerith and Tifa's dual tech, and in a blink and you'll miss it moment, once Tifa lands the final hit in the dual tech, if you look at the bottom right corner of the screen, a little vertical pip appears next to the limit bar for both Tifa and Aerith. Another resource of some kind, perhaps. After that, we get a dual tech with Red and Yuffie, who finally makes her appearance in a totally new environment. If you look at the character panels in the corner again, you can see that they already have their pips, meaning that they must have done this dual tech already. But once they do it while their pips are there, it doesn't change anything. So perhaps you gain the pips by performing dual techs and then spend them on something else. Two other things of note happen during this clip. First, look up at the compass. You'll see a blue main objective that's 11,000 fucking meters away, and a green objective that's 800 meters away. Second, look back at the character panels and you'll see that everyone's HP is much higher than they were at the start of the trailer. There's a glimpse of more pipelines and the surrounding area looks very different from earlier areas. I think there's two possibilities for where the party is at on the world map. They're either near Corel, or they're on the way to Wutai, which is likely a mandatory location to visit now that Yuffie is no longer an optional character like she was in the original game. And finally, a dual tech with Barret and Cloud is the last to be shown off, and it seems to be back in an early game area. Even after all this beefy combat footage, it's still not clear what those pips under the ATB meter are for, but my first assumption is for the dual techs themselves. We finally get some cutscenes again, this time featuring an appearance from Sephiroth. Yuffie sees the purple miasma and freaks out, probably thinking it's Nero. I expect Rebirth to give her more of a personal character arc through the PTSD she has after watching Sonon die. Sephiroth materializes and we start to see footage of the Jenova battle on the cargo ship to Costa del Sol. Similar to the Jenova Dreamweaver battle at the end of Remake, the environment is transformed into a disgusting Jenova-covered arena as part of a nasty vision. While this is happening, Sephiroth describes Jenova, saying that she's a monster who can peer inside a person's soul and take the form of someone they hate, fear, or love. Then we cut to a brief look at Cloud as one of the cloaked Sephiroth clones, uttering the word reunion. And then we see the Nibelheim incident, where a younger Tifa attempts to kill Sephiroth with his own sword, but he stops her and retaliates effortlessly by taking the sword and cutting her as she falls backwards down the stairs. Sephiroth then utters a very ominous line, saying that he killed Tifa, so who is the Tifa currently standing with Cloud? Some people think this is a misdirect with the editing and that he's actually referring to Aerith, but the Japanese dub outright says Tifa by her name, so that little pet theory is already thrown out the window. Basically, Sephiroth is trying to fuck with Cloud's head and make him distrust Tifa by making him think she's Jenova in disguise. You might wonder why he would even bother doing that beyond his nature of wanting to mess with Cloud to begin with, but if the popular theory that this is a time-traveling Sephiroth who knows what's going to happen is true, then he must know that Tifa is the one who inevitably repairs Cloud's mind. And obviously, Sephiroth doesn't want that. And that's where the new footage ends. The game's title comes up and we get a release window of early 2024, which hopefully means it's still within the winter timeframe that we were given a year ago. Personally, I'm expecting the game in March, but I would love it if it came out earlier than that, of course. But the other big detail here is the fact that the game is coming on 2 discs. This little line got a lot of people talking. It's pretty surprising to hear that a PS5 game is going to be big enough to take up 2 discs worth of space. Obviously, the fact that it's on 2 discs isn't terribly surprising when you remember that Remake also came out on 2 discs on the PS4. But you should also remember that PS5 Blu-ray discs are 100 gigabytes each, and the PS4s were 50. Remake on day 1 in 2020 was about 80 gigabytes in size, and while it expanded Midgar significantly, it was still quite a linear game. And Rebirth is obviously going to be much bigger. The exact size is still unknown, but it depends on Square's approach to the map design. If Rebirth is still linear, but much wider, then I can imagine the total game size coming in a ballpark estimate of somewhere around 150 gigabytes. But if the game has a semi-open world of multiple big regions, then I can see it pushing pretty close to a full 200. But either way, I am really fucking glad that Square is doing the right thing and actually putting the money into printing multiple discs. I am a huge, unrepentant critic and just outright hater of massive games that don't fit on one disc and force you to download the rest of the game, which completely defeats the purpose of buying physical in the first place. I fucking despise that. And publishers have no real reason to do it except shameless penny pinching. But I digress. To summarize, what does this trailer basically confirm for us without directly confirming it? Well, besides obvious stuff like dual techs and the combat, the implied stuff is mostly locations. We obviously go to Kalm, then the Chocobo Farm, then Mithril Mines, Junon, and the cargo ship. We don't actually get any discernible footage of Costa del Sol, but that's the destination of the ship anyway, so we are likely still heading there. We're also reaching Cosmo Canyon in Rebirth because that's where Bugenhagen lives. Now, if you recall, Cosmo Canyon is actually after Corel and Gold Saucer in the original game. But again, we didn't see those in the trailer. The problem is that there's no hard link tying these locations together in that order. So it's actually not a given that we go to these places first before going to Cosmo Canyon. It is still possible that we visit places in a different order. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we go to Cosmo Canyon first and then Corel and Gold Saucer after that, which is when Cait Sith will join the party. This would space him out a bit more from Yuffie, who is likely joining sometime after Mithril Mines, either at Junon or maybe on the cargo ship. But yeah, that's as far as the trailer seems to take us. I mentioned Wutai earlier, but that was just my own speculation. But I definitely do not think Square would dare skip taking the players there anyway, especially since Yuffie is no longer an optional character. And with all that said and done, this concludes my analysis of the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer. Over the last few days, while preparing this breakdown, I've gotten into multiple huge conversations with friends who also love the theory crafting aspect of this remake saga. And we've come to some pretty crazy conclusions. Obviously, there's still theories at the end of the day, but it was fun to dive deep into what the narrative can throw at us. This is why I love remakes so much. It provides enjoyment on a meta level. There's a sort of depth to simply discussing the game and where it's going. And I wouldn't be talking about the game this way if it were a one-to-one recreation of the original. I haven't been this involved with fan theories since the lead up to Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Those were the days. Maybe after I finish playing Final Fantasy XVI and get at least one more Rebirth trailer, either at Gamescom or Tokyo Game Show perhaps, I'll make one last prediction video. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, that's the end of the video, and I'm looking forward to more Rebirth reveals as time goes on, especially the long-awaited reintroductions of Cait Sith, Vincent, Cid, and locations like the Gold Saucer. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you around.